I think it's fair to assume that we live in a world where the copy-paste is pretty much common in anything you do. No-name knockoff food exists, which is basically a cheaper copy of the regular food. Different computer programs and operating systems are constantly built and constantly updated on the backs of previous programs and operating systems. And content creators like to copy ideas from other successful content creators and attempt to make their own content. Today I want to compare the 7 Disney Lorcana TCG cards we know and love to other cards in other card games. And before I get too deep into the video, I want to know what you think in the comment section below. Do you guys think that this game is going to be copying a lot from other card games? If you do think that, do you agree with it or disagree with it? I want to know all of your thoughts in the comments. Let me know your thoughts. Let's get a discussion going. Without further ado, let's just jump right into the content here. So this is the one that started it all. This is pretty much commonplace on any Disney Lorcana group, discussion forum, anything on the internet. It's Elsa versus the Queen of Ice from Magic the Gathering. They're both Ice Queen and Snow Queen. They both tap a target creature, but it's not exactly the same, right? The stats are the same, sure. The play cost is technically the same. They are different enough. They're not the same card by any stretch of the imagination. Like, this is a freaking adventure card. I believe it came out in the Throne of Eldraine. I could be wrong. So it's not the same card by any means. However, it's a storybook-like card and a storybook-like game. You know what I mean? So people were immediately drawn to similarities between Elsa and the Queen of Ice. And to be honest, I don't blame them. But every single card in this card game, you can pretty much find something like it. And we're going to show you different examples for every single card. Do you think Elsa is special? No, Elsa's not special. Let's go to Maleficent here and compare it to a card known as Ravenous Chupacabra. Anyone that plays Magic the Gathering in the last few years knows what this card is. It's a menace. When Ravenous Chupacabra enters the battlefield, destroy target creature and opponent controls. Maleficent. When you play this character, you may banish chosen opposing character. Seems pretty similar if you ask me. Seems like it on-play kills something. Now, to be fair, Maleficent has much higher stats than Chupacabra. I don't think that's deniable. But just look. Chupacabra is a very iconic card because it was a staple when the card came out. And even like in draft and limited formats, you wanted this card in your pulls because it was so good. Such a good value card because it was so cheap for what it did. Basically a 4-cost removal spell. Well, Maleficent is just a more expensive version of it. And there are plenty of other cards in other card games that say, when this enters play, kill something. It exists in many card games. But enough about Maleficent. Let's go next to Captain Hook. Captain Hook is the cheap 1-cost 1/2 with Challenger. When challenging, this character gets +2 power. Cool. Well, its counterpart that I found was Borland Marauder, a human warrior, a 1/2 human warrior that costs 2 instead of 1, but when Borland Marauder attacks, gets +2/0, which is basically the same thing. This card is the same as Captain Hook from what we know about the Lorcana card game, except that it costs 2 to play instead of 1. Pretty similar, huh? I don't think that the Lorcana people, when they designed this card, went and flipped through all the old Magic cards. They're like, oh, you know what? Borderland Marauder. Let's make a card around that. I don't think so. I think it's just purely coincidence, right? We'll see more examples of this. Next card I want to talk about is Cruella de Vil, and I'm comparing it to the only Yu-Gi-Oh card that I picked for an example here. Hyper Hammerhead, a dinosaur from Invasion of Chaos. An old card indeed. So Cruella de Vil is a creature that, when challenged and banished, so when it's battled and destroyed, you may return chosen character to their player's hand. Hyper Hammerhead is very similar. When this is destroyed, and the opponent's monster is not destroyed, you return that monster to the hand. It's not the same thing, right? In Magic, I had a hard time finding a creature that did what Cruella de Vil does, Yu-Gi-Oh! This was the closest thing I've found. But it goes to show you, there's a lot of cards that say when this is destroyed, return something to hand, or something like that, or before the battle's done, bounce both, like in the case of Neospace and Gramble in Yu-Gi-Oh! So it's just interesting. You see how effects are similar, not really the same, but similar. It's pretty cool. What about Robin Hood? Well, Robin Hood, let me tell you about Robin Hood for a second. Robin Hood has 2 abilities. Feed the Poor. When you play this character, by the way, for 6, for 4/4, if an opponent has more cards in the hand, draw a card. Okay? And it has, during your turn, this character has Evasive. Alright. Well, we have Sandstone Oracle, a 7-cost 4/4 that always has flying instead of just on your turn, whatever. And when it enters the battlefield, choose an opponent. Remember? Choose an opponent if an opponent. If that player has more cards in hand than you, draw cards equal to the difference. So not nearly as broken, comparatively. You won't draw like 4 cards off this card, off Robin Hood. But very similar, huh? Very similar. It really does make you think, did they just look at Sandstone Oracle and make Robin Hood? Did they do that? Seems pretty sus if you ask me. But again, I don't think that's the intention. What about Stitch? Okay, so I'm going to look at the Adoring Fans ability first. When you play a character with 2 cost or less, you may exert to draw a card. Okay. We have Beast Whisperer here, which costs 4 for a 2/3, 3/5. This could cost 4, whatever. Whenever you cast a creature spell, draw a card. I didn't see something that was worded exactly like Stitch in any card game, but there's plenty of stuff. Cast a creature, draw a card, or like tap a creature, draw a card. You know what I mean? There's lots of similarities here between Stitch, and in all the card games, there is always something that says you can reduce the cost or something by doing this. Stitch is like that. You can pay 4 to play this on top of one of your other Stitches instead of 6. Again, that's not something I've seen in any other card game before, but there's plenty of cards in every game that have reduced costs, basically. So again, very similar. And Mickey Mouse, Evasive. You can compare this to literally any card in any game that can't be blocked, has flying, anything like that. Hundreds, thousands of examples. Mickey Mouse is the representation of those examples. So is this a bad thing? Is it a bad thing that the Disney card game is taking a lot of aspects from other card games? In my opinion, the answer is no. Why? Because you can't reinvent the wheel. Magic was the first card game, and other card games came and followed suit, and everything has taken something from other card games. Lorcana is going to be no exception to the rule. Sure, they'll come up with their own unique mechanics that make it their own game, absolutely. But find me a card game that has nothing to do with any other card game that came before. It just doesn't exist. And why doesn't it exist? Because the formula works. Tapping creatures, suspending things works. Attacking works. Defending works. Bouncing things works. You know what I mean? This is the core concept of many card games. And you're not going to find a popular, successful card game that doesn't take something from Magic or Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh! Or some of the above, or Digimon, or whatever, you know what I mean? Plenty. I'm a Digimon content creator mainly, and there's lots of comparisons to Digimon to other card games. Lots of stuff. You're just not going to be able to find unique stuff. Now, will Disney Lorcana come up with its own unique stuff? Absolutely, I have no doubts. But I don't think it's a bad thing that things are super similar to other cards and other games, because it's going to happen. Whether or not it's intentional or not, it's going to happen, and to be honest, it'll be fine. But you made it to the end of the video. What do you guys think in the comments? Do you think I'm right? Do you think I'm wrong? Let me know, because These cards are looking pretty cool so far, and I'm sure we'll see more of this down the road. Bye.